Hello, Dinara.
Hi, James.
And welcome back. We're going to be looking at another Toefl reading exercise again today. So let's get started. So this one is going to be the Nile Valley and Delta, Egypt. I thought just to explain, just in case people don't know, so a delta is the mouth of the river. So that's where the river meets the sea.
Mm-hmm. I see. Interesting. I forgot it.
Yeah, exactly. Normally with a big river, though, like the Nile or the Mississippi, or, as in maybe the Volga. I think the Volga, as in, so it's big rivers, really. It's not for the small rivers. Exactly. And the Amazon, of course. So we'll carry on. So the Nile Valley and Delta. So I shall start. As with everything, always look over the questions, just to make sure you know what you're looking out for. And that's about it. So should we get started? Mm-hmm. Nile Valley and Delta in Egypt. So the Nile Valley and Delta, the most extensive oasis on Earth, was created by the world's second longest river and its seemingly inexhaustible sources. Without the topographic channel that permits the Nile to flow across the Sahara, Egypt would be entirely desert. The Nile River traverses about 1,600 kilometers through Egypt and flows northward from the Egyptian-Sudanese border to the Mediterranean Sea. The Nile is a combination of three long rivers whose sources are in Central Africa: the White Nile, the Blue Nile, and the Atbara. The White Nile, which begins at Lake Victoria in Uganda, supplies about 28% of the Nile's waters in Egypt. In its course from Lake Victoria to Juba in southern Sudan, the elevation of the White Nile's channel drops more than 600 meters. It's in its 1,600 kilometer course from Juba to Khartoum, I think, Sudan's capital. The river descends only 75 meters. In southern and central Sudan, the White Nile passes through a wide, flat plain covered with swamp vegetation and slows almost to stagnation. The Blue Nile, which originates at Lake Tana in Ethiopia, provides an average of 58% of the Nile's waters in Egypt. It has a steeper gradient and flows more swiftly than the White Nile, which it joins at Khartoum. Unlike the White Nile, the Blue Nile carries a considerable amount of sediment for several kilometers north of Khartoum. Water closer to the eastern bank of the river is visibly muddy and comes from the Blue Nile, while the water closer to the western bank is clearer and comes from the White Nile. It's okay. I mean, the River Nile is interesting. They got one fact wrong. I'm pretty sure it's the longest river on Earth. It's not the largest river on Earth, but I think it's the longest. The largest river is the Amazon. It has a much bigger volume of water than the River Nile, but the River Nile is a bit longer, I think. So just going to check.
There are a lot of words I don't know. So this, as we said before, guys, TOEFL exam has very specific articles from biology, geography, this one, and sometimes even mathematics and informatics. So be ready for that. And I just don't know. For example, I am interested in geography, but not in such details.
No, I get what you mean. So a little too much.
So there are, what does, please, inexhaustible means?
So it never gets tired, or it never runs out.
Exhaustion. I'm exhausted, so I'm tired.
Yeah, it never runs out, never gets tired. Exactly. It depends on the, if the supply of something is inexhaustible, it never runs out. If you're talking about a person as being inexhaustible, then someone who doesn't get tired.
You're a lucky person. I'm constantly tired for some reason.
Oh, I enjoy sleep when I can get it.
And James, what does traverses mean?
Traverse. Traverse is a verb. It simply means go through or cuts through.
the elevation of the White Niles channel. Elevation.
So how high up it is. So how many meters above, they mean how many meters above sea level, I think. How raised it is. So the elevation of something, it just means how raised it is.
So
in this case, it's above sea. It's a way of talking about how far above sea level it is.
Very interesting. And it's easy to remember that word, thankfully, to the word elevator, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because it's something going up. That's the idea, basically.
The river descends.
Goes down. So when you talk about, descend simply means go down.
Flows more swiftly means flows. How does it flow?
Flows more swiftly. So in the words, swiftly means more quickly. So the water is actually faster.
Didn't know that. Very useful. And sediment.
Sediment, mud, basically. So it's the stuff at the bottom of the river. The land, but that's under the river. That wet soil and stuff. It's sediment.
Your vocabulary is crazy, even for a native speaker. I suppose you constantly read. Yeah.
So I read quite a bit, and I also watch a lot of documentaries. So as in watch a lot of documentaries. I've been on a bunch of pub quizzes and stuff like that, so I know quite a few words.
Guys, please follow that advice. I also watch a lot of documentaries, but still my vocabulary is not as rich as James's, and it really can help to enrich your vocabulary much faster than through reading, I suppose, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, because it's a bit more reading. You have to put more energy into it, basically, and I find that you might sometimes look through certain words fly over your head and you just sort of vaguely understand it from the context. Whereas if you're seeing something visual and hearing it at the same time, sometimes it sticks better.
Plus subtitles for foreigners, right? Will be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good plan. And I would always recommend, if you can, to use English subtitles. Because the problem if you use subtitles, it depends on how difficult it is, obviously. So if you're finding something really, really challenging, switch to your own language's subtitles, whatever that might be. For example, watch something in English with, say, Russian subtitles. But what's important, as in if you can cope with the challenges a little bit better, English with English subtitles, because then you can listen to it and you can read at the same time. Whereas I think if you watch it in your own subtitles, you'll focus a bit too much on the subtitles. Your brain will naturally move more towards the subtitles.
Because it's the easiest.
Because it's easier, exactly.
Yeah. Our brain chooses what easier for us.
Yes.
I do it with French now, because French spelling and pronunciation can be two different worlds. And French subtitles really help me to crack this spelling, because I can read better than understand sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. Because the problem is they have a number of silent letters, and also there's they speak quite quickly as well, and there's elision. So you have that mixture. It means it's quite challenging to understand when somebody's speaking quickly. So the elision, what I mean by that, obviously, is the linked speech. So the words moving into each other.
Yeah.
It exists in English as well. English has it too. So.
But the craziest, I think, is Spanish, when they just add pronounce one sentence as it is one word.
I'm not sure if they actually use elision itself, though. They just speak really quickly. Spanish native speakers, they just so it just comes straight out. But I'm not sure if they actually separate, if they actually link the words themselves together. But they do speak quickly, absolutely. So
I'm ready. Other words I know.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. So obviously we've mentioned the fact that one of the facts they've mentioned is wrong, but never mind. So that's about the Nile being the second longest river. So the Nile is longer than the Amazon, but not as large as the Amazon. So the Amazon is wider and has a much larger water volume, but it is not as long as the Nile. So the second longest, it is the longest river and the second largest. Let's carry on with the questions. What does not describe the Nile River? Well, the option which they got wrong was it is the world's longest river, because they've described it as the second longest river. So it flows from south to north, that's correct, and it flows to the Mediterranean Sea, that is correct. But it's so it's correct for the question, but it's incorrect for the fact. Yeah, that's fine.
And what's the answer? I'm confused, sorry.
The answer, it is the world's longest river.
It is not described. It does not describe
the Nile River because they've listed it as the second longest river.
I see. Now I see the logic. Oh my God, so confusing.
Which is not correct, which is inaccurate, but because they've mentioned that, you have to go with what they've said. So, now, what is another word of supplies in the second paragraph? Supplies, provides. Another word for, I think, is what they mean. Another word for supplies is provides. Where does the Blue Nile join with the White Nile? I think that's in... It seems to be a cartoon. So, because it says here, it has a steeper gradient, flows more swiftly than the White Nile, which it joins at Khartoum. So, yeah. So, it's Khartoum is the answer to that one, the first. Although, technically, you would be fine with Sudan as well, because Khartoum is in Sudan. So, in what country does the White Nile begin? So remember, it's country, not place. So it begins in Lake Victoria, but just outside Lake Victoria, I think it is. But it begins, the country is Uganda. And that's quite an easy one anyway, because the only country out of that list is Uganda. Because Khartoum is a city, Lake Victoria is a geographical location. So we'll go for number 5. What created the Nile Valley and Delta? So presumably the Nile, because it's both of the White Nile and the Blue Nile, so the Nile. If it were not for the Nile River, we always say the River Nile, but anyway, what would Egypt be? And they said earlier in it, a desert.
Desert, yeah.
What does not describe the Blue Nile? This one, its source is Lake Victoria, because they've already said that it isn't Lake Victoria, that it starts in Tana in Ethiopia, Lake Tana in Ethiopia. So, yeah, its source is Lake Victoria. In the first paragraph, what is the meaning of the word inexhaustible? Endless.
As you described. Okay, again, guys, Toefl seems easier to me, at least, than IELTS. Please write down your opinion about that. And even the questions are easier. They more about your attention, checking your attention than your English, I think. Do you agree?
Yes.
Confusing, because in IELTS they give some answers, 3 answers, for example. They can all be close to each other, and you need to be really thorough and
precise. And you need to also ignore when the actual paper says things that are not true. So, because I've just realized there's another one that they got wrong, which is the idea that the source of the White Nile is Lake Victoria. It isn't. It goes beyond Lake Victoria. So there's a couple different rivers in Rwanda and Burundi, that are that are the source of the Nile. So I was quite impressed that such a short extract would have so much sort of poor information in it. So, but never mind.
Yeah. But again, some students, they prefer to pass TOEFL.
Yes, of course.
Because it's easier than IELTS. You can do that, guys. And I think it's even cheaper to pass that exam. Anyway, prepare in advance. Yeah, and we wait for you in our next videos. Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye. Good luck.